Well, hey, you, welcome back or welcome to the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, and today is episode 4 of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I am currently batch recording because if you listen to the other episodes, in one of the episodes, I'm seeing if I can get all 5 episodes and get everything. It won't, the podcast won't be fully accepted to the directories, but basically get the podcast to the directories in a day. So I'm on episode 4 out of 5, which is pretty cool. It's having fun. Um, if you've listened to the other episodes, you know I have my corgis, Tank and Willie here with me. And if you hear some paw prints in the background, it is Tank or Willie. And without further ado, let's get into episode 4 of the Miss Michaela Mae Show, which is why Toby Keith's death impacted not just the country, but the world as hard as it did. And this episode has been on my mind since Toby Keith's passing. I mentioned it in an earlier episode, but I think the Taylor Swift episode. Toby Keith is my favorite country singer. I've seen him in concert. I had seen him in concert 3 or 4 times. I think I was going to go and then we had a show conflict. So I think I ended up seeing him 3 times total, 2 at the Moda Center and then once at a center, which used to be the Rose Garden, and then once Sunlight Supply isn't been. There's an amphitheater up in Washington that some of the country music singers will play at. But even from just a very young age, I just absolutely love Toby Keith. It was the first celebrity I've ever cried over their passing. I really didn't. It's interesting because I remember my aunt talking about how she cried when Elvis died, and I remember thinking like, what do you mean you cried when Elvis died? And I bawled when Toby Keith died, and it hit me at a really interesting point. I was on my way to the bank and the radio was playing just Toby Keith all day long, and it was Who's That Man came on, and that's what made me start crying because I'm like, oh my gosh, who's going to be this man trying to sing our man Toby Keith songs? And it hit me and I started crying, and I ended up crying over him randomly like another 5 or 6 times. It just kind of took me by surprise. But what took me by surprise even more was I was talking to a friend of mine and she said, "Can I ask you something?" She's like, "I'm not a huge Toby Keith fan." She's like, "I'm very surprised people are taking his death so hard." And I honestly was just in my own little bubble, if you will, because I had been such a big fan of Toby Keith my whole life. Again, one of my favorite memories or stories is I had kind of mentioned this in the Taylor Swift video as well about how I've always been very opinionated about what I like and what I don't like, especially when it comes to music and certain things. And for some reason, 5 and 6 year old Michaela did not like men with long hair. And one day I'm watching Toby Keith on CMT, the country music television, and he had a mullet. And my mom comes in and she's like, "I thought you didn't like guys with long hair." And again, I'm 5 probably. And I looked at her and I said, "Toby can have whatever kind of hair he wants." I don't know why just this younger version of me just absolutely just was I was like infatuated with everything about Toby, like his appearance, his aura, like his energy, like just the presence. That's the word I'm looking for. The presence that he brought, the way he wrote his songs. Like even at that young age, I just related and connected. I listened to the How Do You Like Me Now. I had a Sony Walkman. You put a cassette in, and like that album got me through my parents' divorce. Like when I was sad, the song like When Love Fades was just like, where do you run? Where do you hide when the promise breaks? Who'll be the one to say goodbye and who'll be the one to stay when love fades? Like that got me through my parents' divorce. And it was just, he's just always had a special place in my heart. And his music has always had a special place in my heart. And so I was just day he died and the week within he died, I was just all in my own feels. Like I saw people posting things, obviously, but I didn't really realize how big of an impact it was having on everyone. Like I wasn't the only one just having this experience until my friend said something, and she said, "Michaela, they're like celebrating Toby in England. Like this is not just an America thing." Like she's like, "I don't think when the Queen died, there was this big of like celebrations to honor someone." And when she said it, it kind of pulled me out of my own little bubble of sadness from mourning Toby. And I I was on the phone with her, but I looked, if you could look at someone through the phone, and your face just gets that look. And I thought like, she's right. This is impacting people in a deeper way than even in some of these other deaths we've experienced. Like, I feel like when a celebrity dies, it is very much a cultural, like, shared experience. And so just led me to think, okay, why did Toby Keith's death impacted us so hard? And I think there was this really weird symbolism of his death in a lot of ways could symbolize like the falling of America. I think that is could be a component, a factor. I don't know, whatever word works. That's not what I'm going to focus on. I actually think one of the reasons his death impacted us so hard as a culture is, I'm going to say the thing out loud that a lot of people don't want to say, like the quiet part out loud. It is actually hard on us to watch a very strong man get weak and pass away. And Toby's passing and Toby's illness amplified that, because he went from being this really strong, I'm going to say brute of a man, to being very frail. Like, it wasn't just that he was sick. By the time he passed away, he was very, very frail. And even he had made comments about, like, I bet you never thought you'd see me in skinny jeans. But it wasn't just like the skinny, it was the frailness. And that's the quiet part, like most of us in our culture don't want to say out loud. It is actually very hard to see a very strong man get weak. And not just on an emotional level, because I actually think there's a problem with us not, especially as women. And again, it's very unpopular in our culture to say like bad things about women, but we as women, I'm a woman, have to take responsibility for our part too, because it takes two to tango. And so we can't ask men to take responsibility for their part if we're not taking responsibility for our part. And our part is to allow men to have that space where they can talk to us about the things that they're supposed to hide. Um, I have worked with, as I've mentioned in the previous episodes, from being experiencing childhood sexual abuse at a young age. I've talked to and worked with a lot of people who have also experienced childhood sexual abuse. And I've worked with a few boys and men. And one of the things that gets overlooked is the stats for men to get sexually abused is way higher than most people can possibly fathom. They just don't talk about it. A woman will accidentally, or women just talk more. So they'll share randomly, like even if they never file a police report, they'll randomly tell someone like, oh yeah, that happened. Men won't. Men will take that to their grave and no one will ever know. And it's actually, I don't really know a politically correct way to say it, so I'm just going to say it very bluntly. The most popular, gosh, I hate wording it this way, but when I was studying child trafficking, the most popular request, I guess, is 13-year-old boys. And that's stats based on America. So if that's the trafficking stats, we are way underreported. Because trafficking stats, if people are rescuing you from trafficking, you can't hide those stats, like they're there. The sexual abuse case, like those are the stats, like especially in America, are way underreported for boys. And so us as women have to be responsible for not expecting, allowing men to have the spaces where they can be vulnerable, because there is a lot of women that, like, if a man even shows emotion, they'll take him down at the knees. So yes, that is where women need to take responsibility. But then there is also this other piece of physical strength where, as women and as a culture, I think for young boys too, I can't speak for adult men, but we do feel safer when there are strong men in our culture. And when women feel safer, it is better for both men and women to feel that way. So when we have strong men, again, the men feel better and the women also feel better as a side effect of that. I talk a lot more about like the safety piece in the Taylor Swift episode and why that does have such an impact on us. So if you want to listen to that piece, like go back to that episode if you haven't yet. And that to me is what Toby Keith's death symbolized, was that it is actually not just symbolized, that was not the correct, revealed in our culture, is that it is hard on us to watch strong men go weak, and that we do actually like strong men. Like, I think that was the other thing that revealed, is we do actually like to have a man who's outspoken, who's honest, and who stays in integrity. Because there was a lot of people who back in 2020 never would have publicly acknowledged their relationship with Toby, that they were saying, like, even if I didn't agree with everything he said, I honored him and I respected him for believing what he said and saying what he believed. And so I think his death, while it symbolized many things, I also think it revealed a lot of things. And one of those revealings was it is hard for us to see someone get so I'm not going to say weak, because he was never weak, but so frail. And I also think it revealed how many people do feel the same way and also want to have a similar integrity as Toby, that want to say what they believe and believe what they say. So this is going to be a little bit shorter episode today, but it's been something that's been on my mind, and it's been really important for me to speak up and say. But I do want to end this episode similarly, like I have the rest of the episodes, of whether it's Taylor or Miley or Toby. I've got quite the lineup, don't I? What can we learn from them? Like, what can we take from what they're showing us, and how can we apply it to our own lives and make our own lives better? And so the thing that, and this is just also something I've learned as someone, I'm going to get more into this in another episode, but as someone who's just been on a journey of how do we like honor people who have passed. Like my cousin passed in 2020, and it's just, I've always sat with like, how do we honor the dead in the best way possible? And one of the things that I've prayed on and meditated on that's come to me is like, we keep their message alive. We somehow, the us that are still here on earth, we find a way to take their message and we keep it alive, and that's how we honor them. Because actually, I was debating if this was going to be my next episode, but I think it is, and it makes sense why the structure of it changed a little bit. But it is going to be like, all of us have a mission that only we are here to fulfill, and all the people that have passed have that same mission. And so the best way we can honor them is by taking the lessons from their mission and keeping them alive. And so everyone, Toby, everyone's going to take a little bit of a different lesson away from Toby. For me, it was that integrity of saying what you believe and believing what you say, and not being afraid to stand up for those things, even though it's controversial. Like this podcast, in a lot of ways, me practicing becoming more unfiltered, being more authentic, of like, okay, even though the Angry American was very controversial, if you truly believe and you have prayed on it and you believe that it is the right thing to do, you need to do it regardless of what the backlash is going to be. And so that, for me, just talking even with you here about Toby today, that's like a big thing for me, is like, how do I take that lesson of how can I be more in integrity, more unapologetic, and more authentic, and do the right thing, even if that right thing is going to come with a lot of backlash. So that is the question I'm going to leave with you today, is if you're listening to this, and if you, like me, just love and honor Toby, ask yourself, what lesson did Toby teach you? And how can you keep that lesson alive, that message alive in your everyday and day-to-day life? So that is what I will leave you with. That is a wrap on episode 4 of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I am so thankful you're here. I'm so thankful you're on this journey with me. I'm so thankful you tuned in to hang out with Willie, Tank, and myself today. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so honored if you would rate and subscribe. And please leave me a review. The reviews are so helpful, and I just love reading them. And I always get inspiration, whether it's been this show, The Western Hippie, or my first podcast, which was Love Aligned Radio. Spoiler alert, I'll tell you that story in another episode. I just loved reading the reviews, and it gave me inspiration. And it also, like, if there's something I can talk about that will help you, I do want to talk about it. So please let me, if you leave a review, let me know that as well, if I can help you with anything. Thank you for hanging out with us today, and we will talk to you on the next episode.